but rather Locke, with his analysis of experience into simple ideas, passively received, conjoined or separated in terms of psychological processes of association, merely. That atomizing of experience. No, instead of atomistic experience, what James is after is a more holistic, interrelated, if you like, and organic experience. Experience in that sense, which is much more experience in the sense that we actually experience it. Do you remember trying to get the idea of what an atomistic sense datum is? You see, an atomistic sense datum is not a patch of color. It's a patch. Color is a separate atomistic sense datum that you impose on the patch. You see, and the whole notion of an atomistic sense datum and experience in that sense is a high level of abstraction. You see. Concrete experience does not separate primary and secondary qualities, does not atomize into simple ideas. Concrete experience is a continuum, a stream, a process. And so it's this a concrete experience that he's after. But with James, concrete experience is always psychological experience. It's not a question of what are you thinking, but how are you feeling it? You see. Not what are you thinking, but how are you feeling it? And notice how different those are in our common ways of talking. You see, by and large, in class, I say to you, well, what do you think? What's on your mind? As if the experience you are having is one of thinking ideas, thinking theories. But James is talking of experience not in that sense, which is the objectivizing sense. He's talking of experience rather in how do you feel about this? You see, how do you feel about it? Do you feel some inner tensions? In you, in your experience, do you feel inner tensions? Or do you feel satisfied? Now, get that? Inner tensions, satisfied. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Satisfaction, one of Whitehead's terms. Do you feel inner tensions? Do you feel satisfied? You see, the psychological experience. The fact of the matter is, as you likely have read, as if you've been reading on Stumpf for this week, that James's initial education was medicine, emphasis physiology. He got into psychology by studying for a while in the first experimental psych labs in Germany in the 19th century, late 19th century. Physiological psychology experimentally. Get the scientific method background? Now, that was before psychology was thought of as a separate science. I think it was until 1910, 1911, the Journal of Philosophy was called the Journal of Philosophy, Psychology, Scientific Method, etc. A mouthful. The Journal of Philosophy, Psychology, Scientific Method, etc. So when James came back to this country and got a job teaching psychology at Harvard, he was in the Department of Philosophy. He never took a course in philosophy in his life. And gradually moved from writing about physiological psychology to writing about introspective psychology to writing about philosophical psychology to writing about philosophy. You see. Oh, in those days, much more possible to do that than now. It wasn't until after World War II that philosophy really started becoming highly technical, highly specialized. But particularly back then, it was sort of the intellectual inquiry that any educated person could read. That's why Peirce could publish in Popular Science Monthly and make an influence. You try doing that now. With that, you find James, for instance, writing a book on varieties of religious experience, psychology of religion. Now, admittedly, philosophers are still interested in religious experience and the argument from religious experience. Some of you may remember Yandel's lecture on that last year. They're interested in religious pluralism, not just theologians as this week, but philosophers are interested in religious pluralism as well. And Yandel gave a lecture on that last year. Yes, sir. He's interested in concrete experience on the basis of his, or under the influence of, his psychological condition, psychological preparation. So the question then, in terms of fixing belief, in terms of understanding the meaning of a philosophical theory, is what does it mean psychologically? So he defines materialism. Now here's his definition of materialism. Pragmatic definition. Materialism means the denial that moral order is eternal and the cutting off of ultimate hopes. In contrast to materialism, what he calls spiritualism, roughly equated in his vocabulary with theism, means the affirming of an eternal moral order and letting loose of hope. So the reference point in defining materialism as against theism, antithetical worldviews, the reference point is the psychology of hope, the psychological experience of hope. Yeah. Here's how do you test for the truth? And his answer is simply, if it provides you with the experience of hope, that sort of satisfaction, then we say the theory has cash value. It works. And truth he defines simply as workability. Truth is workability. So from the psychological cash value of a belief, he backs up to a redefinition of truth. And he can do this because of this pragmatic view that experience is our reality. So the reality we experience is the reality of hope or no hope. And it's that which is referred to when we speak of truth. Well, time is gone, but I'll sum this up and give a couple more examples of how he applies it next time, and then we'll move into John Dewey.